All right, we start recording.
Okay, so I think, shall we kick off, or Linan, we're still waiting for 1 or 2 minutes?
再等1分钟吧，1分钟以后我们就可以开始了。
Right, as we are recording, maybe we have our chit chat later.
对。哎呀，有些朋友还在问我怎么进会议室。
Okay, yeah. You have to facilitate that. We don't have our assistant today, no?
I don't know where she is. 稍等啊，等一下，我在这儿给你们，我把这个。
So hang on, Lilan. So Glenn will start, or you will start? Glenn will start.
Glenn will start. So I'll stop sharing. Okay.
Right.
So when it started, I'll stop sharing. So now you can. 好的。行，那Julia你就开始吧，然后我这边有几个短信要回一下。
Okay, I saw there's one person. Shall we give some time?
可以，你说中文就行了。
Okay. 那个我们现在要准备开始我们的 webinar 哈。今天呢，我们特别荣幸，就是请到了 Glenn Freeman，他是在这个 Support Living 这边做了一些很神奇的事情哈。我们请他分享他的经验、他的知识，然后讲他的故事。这个我们会大概先让他分享，然后我们会有提问题的时间，然后如果时间再有富裕的话。我们会请这个英才有道的这个创始人李楠再讲一下英国脱欧以及这个后疫情时代的这个房地产投资的一些这个走向预测什么的。今天的这个时长大概是1个小时到1个半小时左右。都是我们的方式都是先请二位呢先做讲座，然后我们再进行 Q&A。如果大家有问题的话，途中怕忘了也可以在 chat 里面提出来，我会收集一下。我是 Julia， 我是这次 webinar 的 host， 欢迎大家。
欢迎大家，我是李楠，英才有道的创始人。
Right, Glenn, I think we can start with you, and you can have a brief introduction of yourself, and then start your speech.
I would like to have a proper introduction for Glenn Freeman before invite him on the stage to shine. I met Glenn Freeman, how many years? 2 or 3 years ago. We both going to the PIN meeting in Blackfriars, which is Simon Sushi's, community. And I spot this man. I think he looks like, half Chinese and half Russian, that kind of region. So I instantly attracted him and start to say hello. And it's turned out he does have some connections with Chinese community, have a beautiful girlfriend in Chinese, and she can speak a bit of a Chinese as well. Since then we haven't been in touch for a while. And until a few months ago, I started to join the Blackfriars meeting again. And somehow instantly, he sent me LinkedIn messages and I was start chatting and you find out he's doing amazing business with, during the COVID period. As you know, a lot of landlords struggled to find good tenants in this period. Their houses are empty, or even they are not empty, but the tenants lost their job and they cannot pay the rent. And I receive a lot of WhatsApp and WeChat emails, all that things. How my friends are talking to me saying, how can we, my tenants haven't been paid for 12 months. What we can do about it? The things really, it's a very bad time for the landlord community at this time. But Glenn had worked with the Justice of Ministry of Justice and rented out a lot of property and generate 1.3 million revenues for a variety of landlords. That is an astonishing achievement. I'm really like to know more. So, I'll bring him to this platform and all of us can listen to his story. Glenn, the platform is yours.
很高兴你今天来这里。It's really, really nice to meet you all and to be with you here today. What we know is that during this last 2 years, 18 months, 2 years, it's been a really, really, really challenging time. The problems that have occurred or the incident that has occurred have really magnified existing holes in our society. It's really magnified the division. We know there have been all sorts of challenges, people homeless. There's been elements of racism, which you guys have experienced. There's been people screaming for help. Interestingly, it's been the usual bunch of people that actually we don't normally know about. We don't even know they're there. We don't even notice. These people, but now this has some people who wouldn't normally be there are also there too. Hence the landlord community having issues with payments of rent and so forth. And being able to mobilize people in the country, being able to get people into your properties, that's been challenging too. So, these marginalized people, okay, they are there, but we recognize that other people have had those problems. What's really clear is that these people have been entirely overlooked until now. And the landlord community has stepped up and used this as an opportunity to provide a correction to society. And that's been quite incredible. And also we've been there to help fill rooms as well. Now, people all talking social living is the next big thing. Social housing, supported living, and all those areas are the big conversation right now. And the real challenge is that landlords and investors and registered providers, they have a common set of problems, but they have a different challenge, but they have different challenges with those problems. And those key problems are properties, finance, insurance, and referrals, knowing who to go to for the referrals for this style and type of accommodation. Registered providers are challenged with where to put people, and they can't connect with the landlord community. It's not actually easy for them to do that. And landlords and investors want to make sure that their money is reassured, that they're paid by those organizations, that the finance is there, the funding, and that your property is adequately insured. And also that you're not going to get the bank come along and say, you can't do this anymore. So these are some of the challenges that people are really facing. The conversations are going on right now in our property provider community. Now, the key thing in this really is the right product with the right strategy. And what Response Accommodation has been doing is working on this and asking these questions. So to talk a little bit more about what I do, my name's Glenn Freeman. I run Response Accommodation. I'm a profit with purpose property broker. And what we've done is we've been working with government organizations like the Ministry of Justice. We've been working with organizations like the NHS to connect the right product with the right landlords, with the flexible landlords throughout the pandemic. We look to connect the requirements with with the product that's available on the market. And we'd like to make sure the correct product is there. So that's as a business, that's what we do. It really went through a personal journey. It took some steps to get here. I was one of those people 3 to 4 years ago. I'd have sat here and said, why do you want to deal with these waste of time people? Why do you, I pay my tax money for this. Why do I do that? It's totally pointless. These people are a waste of time. They're a drain on a society. And they haven't done nothing in their life. Why should we help them? That was me. I had a very distorted view of society. And through my personal journey, I'm looking a little bit at happiness and looking a little bit at belonging and collaboration. I realized some new things. We'll get into detail with that a bit later. The other thing that happened, COVID gave us all financial challenges. I really had to look at, now I knew this, what was I actually going to do? It was quite a journey. But what I had behind me was data. I had a data-oriented property business. I had a very supportive community of people to work with. I had a collaborative collection of people who were in a similar mindset to myself. And I gradually worked, and the end result of this now is that out of the work that we've done is that we've got £100 million worth of funding to put into social housing in the UK. Investors like yourselves, landlords like yourselves, lenders, banks, insurance companies, they want to work with us to do this because everybody knows it needs to be done. We've become the trusted party in this area, shown that we've got a heart. Thank you a little bit more. What our solution is, really?
Sorry to interrupt. I think that someone needs to mute the microphone. There is a very noisy background. Sorry.
It's okay. I'll mute all of them, so it's fine. Sorry
Okay,
about
please.
it.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So really the next step is to get into, okay, what do we need to do? What's the solution? And our solution at Response Accommodation is the profit with purpose model, which has driven our delivery of what we've done for the Ministry of Justice. And we want to be the people who have a community of people around us who are working with profit with purpose. You know, we are property people. We need to make profit. It can't, if we don't, it can't work. We are people who want to make a difference. And I think if everybody was going to invest their money where it would make a difference and they could make a profit, why wouldn't they? So that's the kind of story around that. The key model, the profit for purpose model, is built around the data. It's built around the community. It's built around the finance. And at the center of it all is the need. What's the need? What's the right product for this need? So this is really key and essential in our model to make it work. So landlords need to know if they're buying properties or investing in properties, or they have properties, how do those properties need to be converted for the people who need to use them? How are they appropriately set out for the customer base that's out there? The brilliant thing is we understand that customer base. So to go a little, so that's what we're doing in the business. What I want to do is go into a little bit more detail about how did I get there. What I really discovered was my business property data engine had a great asset. It had data, but there was something missing. And what was missing was team and community. The business was all about me. And when something's all about you, we don't have us here right now, right? We don't have the connection that's required. So that was a big discovery piece that I had. The next was my want. I wanted to make profits. It's important for any business to want to make profits. If we don't, we fail. But I wanted to do that in my old business that was all about me, that wasn't necessarily about my customer. As part of that exploration into me, I sought some help and support and assistance from my community. I had something new. I had community, and I ran a happiness campaign in London, and that was called the Smiles on the Lines campaign. The goals of the Smiles on the Lines campaign was to bring happiness and connection on the tube. That sounds like a crazy place to do that. Yes, I'm asking people to do things that are new, that are different. And what I really, and that story got published in the national press. There was a fair outcry from people who said, we don't have to be happy, or I'm completely happy being unhappy. I became a voice for making a difference in that story. And things were published about the previously angry guy who is now this. And I'm sure that those stories are coming in the future more. The great thing was I was a survey run in the Independent newspaper, which is a national newspaper. And what it actually said was that actually 15% of people were impacted by the campaign. So I think that if 15% of property owners or investors were impacted by what we're doing right now, that would be a fantastic result. Some people might say 85% of people didn't care, they didn't listen. But that's okay, because we look at the types of impacts that can be made. And this is why we're joining together communities such as you. We have people like Nan Lee, who's out speaking on these topics. And I mean, to put it into concreteness, what I now had was connection, collaboration. We had existence. We realized I started to look around at the existence of people as a result of running this campaign. I would suddenly know the name of the person who was serving me in the coffee shop every day. I would walk out on the street. I'd go and talk to homeless people. I'd understand their challenges and what was going on for them. And really get the problems that government legislation has, the problems that much of the property industry isn't really set up for this. It's very hard to do it legally, ethically, but we have to make this happen, because otherwise people are going to be on the streets. They're going to come out of jail and they're not going to have a home. If they don't have a home, they'll go and steal. They'll end up back where they came from. It costs £36,000 a year to keep somebody in prison. I'd rather invest that in something else. I'd rather my tax money was spent wisely. So in becoming part of the solution, I solved the problems that I had identified as my previous self that I used to complain about. The pandemic had a massive impact on my data business. People stopped spending. The first thing you cut is marketing, tech, people speaking. You cut what are deemed as unnecessary things. You cut staff. Cutting staff causes homelessness, or it may very well possibly do as the furlough is released moving forward. So that's where the opportunity lies. As a result of this is where the profit with purpose model that we now use was born. And this is why we're reaching out to share this model with you guys so that you can start to take your own actions. So I hope that I'm an inspiration in that. Response accommodation was born. Today, I'm going to an award ceremony. We've been shortlisted for a Profit with Purpose award. We've done lots and lots of projects. And I'm about to start you in a bit more detail about the types of things that we've been doing. So the first opportunity, as you know, came from the Ministry of Justice. The Ministry of Justice needed beds because people were coming out of prison. There was a virus in the community. They couldn't go onto the streets and they had nowhere to go. Initially we did that with a few vulnerable people who'd actually experienced domestic violence and ended up in prison because they committed a crime, because they hadn't committed, but they had experienced domestic violence. So that was kind of our starting point, our entry into what we do. We identified the problem, the need. We then started to look at the data. The data showed that the prisons were overcrowded to apply social distancing regulation. And the Ministry of Justice, seen as we've been accommodating people, couldn't maintain that capacity in the prisons. They need to reduce it through early release programs. So response accommodation got our first project in the Midlands to accommodate the early release program. What was fantastic is that serviced accommodation providers were struggling at the time to fill their rooms. They didn't know what to do with them. So this was a great match that really worked. We sourced the accommodation, we found the empty properties, the MOJ gave us referrals of individuals with particular circumstances. We understood where they were allowed to go, where they weren't allowed to go. We understood the pricing that would work because of our data analytics capability. And we matched them with landlords who were providing serviced accommodation or short let properties. That was great. Property providers had their properties filled. People had, the organizations and the individuals had their needs fulfilled. Everybody made a profit. So it's a good example of the Profit with Purpose model working with response accommodation and what we can do and the types of things that you can do for your for any providers or organizations that you work with. The next step was that the Ministry of Justice, that was quite a high cost way of doing it, and we needed longer term solutions, and there was less due diligence on companies acting during the pandemic. We probably wouldn't have passed originally, which is the opportunity to create something new. So what we've done is we've teamed up with a national organization called MEARS, M-E-A-R-S, and MEARS required rental properties across the UK. They came to response accommodation because we were trusted and we'd done it before. And essentially we could actually deliver what they were looking for. They had the money to help us to do it. So the funds. What does that look like for a property provider or a property investor? So there was a brand new, just purchased portfolio of 20 properties bought by one of our providers. And those properties are now let to MEARS. Very, very simple. We knew the need was there. There was the opportunity for the transaction. We knew the people that were staying there. We could tell the story. And the property, the investor now has his properties let for a year, 20 of them. And actually, I can tell you this is an investor from the Chinese community. So this is brilliant for MEARS, brilliant for the investor, and brilliant for the MOJ, and fantastic for the people that are being housed. So that's another example of what we can do, is kind of collaborate and match and broker those arrangements. The final one is we worked with a number of providers through this process, and people started to get interested in how do I invest in, how do I invest in this profit with purpose idea? How can I make money here? How do I get involved? And an organization came to us and said they would like to give us £100 million of investors' money to actually go out there and source and find properties. Using our data capability, we were able to do that. And also they wanted us to connect them with the people who could rent them. So these two things in combination, having the need, understanding the need, the referral, understanding the source of referrals, understanding the sourcing of the property, for example, working with property people who source property is a way, or agencies across the country. This opened up that opportunity for this to be shaped so that we could deliver on the need at the centre. So what we'll be doing over the next 3 years is a UK-wide investment program using that money. And we're always open to other people to come to us, people with different investment requirements, who want to target different sets of needs, to work on that. And that's this is a way in which you guys can do this individually, or you can work with someone like Response or Nanli to do this. So those are some of the key success stories around what we've been doing, around how we've been pursuing this opportunity that exists right now with the massive government funding that's going into programs like this, helping to spend the tax money that we've been paying already wisely. So yeah, I wanted to invite a conversation really around profit with purpose investing. I'm always happy to work with people with large portfolios and how to manage them, how to rent them out. I'm always willing to, if you've got a developer or an investor who's built something that might suit social needs, or you want some help to build something that might suit social needs, I'm always here to have a conversation about those things and how we can actually make a difference in the process. I really want to get to know you guys, and it's been fantastic to connect with Nanli and find out what Nanli has achieved in this arena. This is only achieved through connection, collaboration, data. The community is at the heart of it, but the need is what is important. So yeah, Nanli will put a mention of a link where you can send me a Calendly request. My email address is there if you want to reach me in the chat. So yeah, do go if you're getting any form of inspiration around profit with purpose investing. If you have portfolios or anything that might suit these needs, we can have a chat and see if they can work. And I'll be able to give you guidance or allocate you to a member of my team who can give you better guidance on what to do with those units. And yeah, it's really fantastic to be, part of this property provider community, which I'm also part of. I let my personal properties now to Chinese students who have short-term accommodation needs because they've been stuck in the country. I connect with a lot of the Chinese community in London, as Nanli has mentioned already. It's fantastic to talk with you guys today. Click on the link, book the call, send me an email, and I'll be there for you.
Thank you very much, Green, for sharing the fantastic story. Your story also inspire me as well, especially when you said, the business is not about yourself. It's about, helping others join a community. And that is, truly in line with my, of this, in parallel yield my inside your DAO business as well. And just try to connecting people together and, because property is people business. That's yourself cannot doing all of things yourself. So that's great. Shall we open to some questions? Julia, anybody had answered that? Have any questions to?
For the moment, not in the chat box. Maybe someone just want to raise it, or maybe I start with a stupid question, which is really stupid, I think. Right, Glenn, you mentioned, I heard you mentioned several times the data driven. Maybe you have already explained, maybe I missed. Could you explain again what exactly this data driven means?
Yeah, sure. It's a fantastic question. What data driven means is to understand the market in this sector. You have to understand the tenders that are driving these needs, where these needs are surfaced. You have to understand the market rate and market price for accommodation. Once you've got those two things, once you understand the money that's available and where it's going to come from, then that helps you to see if you can deliver a solution profitably. The other thing is having lists of serviced accommodation providers across the country, or people who have property. You can actually register on our website, our responseaccommodation.com. If you click on property providers, and you can add your property there. This is mainly facilitating rental properties at the moment. But if you have properties for sale, you can obviously contact Nanli and myself, and we can potentially find a solution for you. The data is key because you're able to work out the size of the problem, the size of the market. You're also able to work out the impact on the problem you're having. So with the MOJ example, we were taking in referrals. We had hundreds of referrals, probably more than we could support within the property community that we had grown all the time, but it's consistently growing, so that's good news. We knew how many property providers we had. We knew how many incidents were happening. We knew how many people went back to jail. The good news is that our incident level was below 12%, and that includes people smoking in their room. We know that major incidents was below 4.5%. So, people damage property. That needs to be paid for somehow. You have to know who's responsible for that. You have to know how much it's going to cost you. So data is at the center of all of these things, by looking at the need and how it's being addressed, looking at the size of the market, looking at the pricing. And the pricing is when your property provider or an investor or a landlord or a registered provider who needs to provide properties is vitally important. It's at the core of all of it. Has that answered that question fully for you?
Yes. Thanks for the explanation. Yes, it did. But I have then followed this. I have another question. As you are managing all these valuable data or massive data, let's say from different channels and so on, do you manage by yourself, or sometimes you also use the intelligence company, or access to even further data, or you buy some data, or how do you sort of access to more data which serve your business, of course?
So fortunately, I'm also the founder of Property Data Engine.
Okay.
Property Data Engine is a property data business. It's the one that didn't do so well early in the pandemic. So we were able to use the capabilities, our data collection capabilities to find properties, our data scraping capabilities to go out there and explore places where landlords were hanging out. We were able to use the pricing data that we had. We were able to buy in some resources from other companies into Response who have property data sets already available. And by combining all of these, we're able to give a really clear picture to a landlord or to an investor of what return can one expect to get, what risks are involved, and that's quite and what's the pricing in the marketplace, and that's quite helpful to combine all the having that skill set, having worked for Expedia, I worked in the travel industry, been a personal property investor since 2004. So combining all of that with the knowledge of our collective team is really, really useful, and something I always say people need data in their business. People need it to be well organized. The basic fundamentals, this customer relationship management system, the list of properties, the basic analytics. It all starts with the foundation of good data.
Yeah. Data is money. Yeah, very simply. But yeah, thanks. I think perfect. Now I got all the answers I want.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Julia.
All right. Could I ask a question regarding the the security issue of the people of the prison? You mentioned you providing those service to the people who are supposed to go into the prison, but because of COVID, they cannot, and they let it to them to the residential houses. How those people will be controlled? Who is, is there a guard 24 hours watching on them? What exactly that set out like?
Well, I can give you what we did. And the first thing is actually we didn't do custodial accommodation. Just to be clear, we did early release accommodation. So these were always people who had actually been in prison. Now there are tenders available and there is opportunity in the marketplace for the custodial style accommodation, or bail accommodation, you might call it. But what we did in terms of response accommodation during pandemic was a challenging time. Sending staff in was next to impossible.
Yeah.
In this scenario, what we did is we entrusted our property providers, and we put people in really actually quite nice accommodation. I think I told you people slammed me for running a smiling campaign. I can imagine that there will be some people out there who might do the same thing because I put people in really nice accommodation. But with where it was successful, there wasn't any guards. There's not prison guards standing at the door with the handcuffs ready to go. There wasn't, there was visits sometimes in some probation areas. The probation officer will come to visit. The prisoners have things they have to do to not put themselves back into jail. So it will be visit a probation officer, visit the job centre, visit a doctor if they have drug or alcohol issues. And as long as they follow those instructions, no actions were taken.
Right.
It was our trust. It was that environment, and a knock on the door once a week for a serviced accommodation provider, just to show a friendly face. And some might say, "Whoa, that's risky. I won't do it." And we did have some people that did that. Which ex-offenders were more successful in their programs. It was the one where they had a friendly face. There was a guy called Uncle Mo. The offenders called him Uncle Mo, and he housed, I think it was about 15 people on our program. He one time he bought a guy a curry just because he said that he was a bit hungry and couldn't gain access to food. We had my staff, in some cases where people were put in on a Friday night, they didn't have meal tickets, they couldn't get food. We sent food or we took food. So it was that caring rather than institutional environment that brought the success of that low reoffending rates. And this is what we're talking to governments. It's not about guarding, it's about trusting people that they can be amazing people.
I see. Yes.
But yes, there are some, we wouldn't put them next to schools for a number of reasons. We wouldn't put them next to vulnerable people. We wouldn't put them next to NHS staff. But we do put people in the community. And what we do is we make sure it's not houses full of ex-offenders, because that's just like a prison.
Oh, I see.
It's distributed across the community so it can be managed.
Oh, I see. Okay. So you mix them together, like with other.
I could have one living next door to me. That's the reality of it. And I'd feel comfortable to do that.
Wow. Interesting. Yeah.
And because it creates better results. And as long as they're monitored and they're following their program, everything should be. You get the drug users, alcohol abusers. Sometimes those are the problematic challenges. And if this doesn't work, we lift them and put them somewhere else that delivers more appropriate levels of care.
Okay. So what type of properties do you put them in? Is it HMOs or a 2-bedroom flat, a house in a rural area or in city center? Is there have a requirement?
They're generally urban locations or town locations. Not always, they don't have to be city centre, they can be on the edge of the city. It's fairly flexible. For the MEA's requirement, right, let's go back to that accommodation requirement for the serviced accommodation. That was 1-bedroom or studio flats generally.
Okay.
There is going to be a demand for this across the UK in the next few months.
Right.
The other need, the MEA's need, is 2 to 3 bed 1, 2, 3 bed properties. Sorry, and this is in the northwest of England, Yorkshire and Humberside.
Okay.
And we're going to be required. Those are on a 12-month let. And those, properties in good nick, nice and tidy and professional, ready to go. Ideally would have a cooker. If they're furnished, it's brilliant. If they're not, that can be provided. So yeah, there's a whole range. The golden standard is the 1-bedroom flat or studio.
Got you. Right. Yeah. I'm happy to put that into the our WeChat community, putting the name, the place, and what type of property in there, and put your names on them so they can contact you if the landlord have some empty properties. And is those demand ongoing needs, or it just because of the COVID? Is it short-term needs?
The CAS 3 program, which is the one that we built for the Ministry of Justice, we designed it at Response Accommodation, and that's the one we're delivering with MEAs. That is a long-term plan.
Okay.
That contract has been awarded for a year. It's going to be extended significantly, and that will be ongoing. The emergency accommodation, the sort of 1-bed studios for up to 3 weeks, that's sort of ongoing with the COVID scheme. that sort of thing is always required. There's always people who need emergency accommodation, but there is the transition from governments or councils trying to shift the cost to longer term accommodation. That's an opportunity too. We're helping to deliver some of those programs for councils across the country.
Brilliant. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Is there anybody else have questions?
Just a moment. Those are usually the 10 to 15 year contracts.
I mean the emergency accommodation, a
Yeah.
10 to 15 years of contract.
Not the emergency one, when they're trying to move to long term.
All right. So my understanding is those people that once they get rid of the prison and they will go to the local council
Yes.
to apply for a house, and they will be fully into the local council's, tenant profile.
Yes, we're facilitating some councils to move people from short to long term.
Okay. And in terms of finance reward, the short-term one generally providing more, return revenues than the long-term one. The long-term would be just the council's, council universal credit rate, isn't it?
Correct.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Sounds, if the short-term, how long the council would be paying for their accommodation? 3 weeks.
It depends. I think it's up to 52 nights.
Okay, see.
But there are some people in long-term emergency accommodation that is paid on a nightly rate. So, that's always needed. In London, they don't want to do that anymore. But there is a transition period that's necessary.
Okay, interesting. So what you mentioned the north area of England, generally the area they're still doing this business.
The short-term accommodation will always be there. It will always be required for the Ministry of organisations like the Ministry of Justice and the councils, for example, people who are victims of domestic violence. It'll always be there, but we don't want people long term in emergency accommodation. That doesn't deliver for the needs of those individuals.
Sure. Great. All right. Anybody would like to have questions? If not, then we go into the
someone is talking. Anna.
Yeah, hello, Mr. Freeman. Your presentation is quite impressive, and your qualitative approach is inspiring. Thank you very much for your presentation. And I have one question. Apart from cooperating with the Ministry of Justice, you also mentioned that you got connected with NHS. So can you elaborate a bit more about your cooperation with NHS?
Yeah, sure. So in the NHS response accommodation currently hold a 3-year contract to provide NHS accommodation for South London. South London covers Guy's and St Thomas's. It covers Lewisham area. It goes anywhere up to Greenwich and touches onto the edge of Croydon, not quite Croydon. So there's opportunities for short-term accommodation needs, stays of just over 2 months. And those are for NHS staff that are either relocating from inside of the UK or coming from abroad. And that opportunity is available right now. Yeah, and that's on a sort of monthly rate basis for a short-term let. If you're interested in that, book a chat with me and I can put you in the right direction.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I had a chat with Glenn about the NHS. I think it's about 700 to 800 pounds per room on a monthly basis. That's the landlord can get. Yeah.
You mean
Yeah.
700 to 900 per room per month?
No, I think it's 700 to 800, around
Okay.
700 to 800 per room.
Per room?
Yes.
Just a bedroom or a studio?
Studio will be higher price, isn't it, Glenn?
They can be shared properties. The pricing model is quite complex, so it depends precisely on which type of property you have. But if you got in touch with the team and you had properties in those areas, then we can give you the rates. Yeah, it's really good. The NHS are quite frequently, as the terminology has been created now, key worker rates. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you.
No problem, Anna. Thank you. Thank you very much for your questions, and also thank you for your compliments regarding the presentation.
Can I ask a general question, Glenn? You've mentioned some challenges earlier. Are they the biggest challenge, or is there any, or let's say, what is the biggest challenge? Because to me, it's like working with NHS, MOJ, with this, because quite a special niche to me. So I'm just curious.
Well, when we initially built the company, we had the philosophy of providing niche property needs. So it's no surprise that the needs that come to us are quite niche. The NHS is basically it's accommodation for staff. So it's not particularly, that one isn't particularly complex. That was what we said we were going to do at the beginning of the pandemic. We didn't actually get the contract until very, very recently. So yeah, that's quite niche. MOJ, niche again, everything is based around the need. And essentially, because it's based around the need, often it's niche, and we reach out to property providers. We say, can you do this? Reach out to investors. We say, can you help us with this? Or have you got any properties to sell us for that? And that way, the database is another essential part of fulfilling on those niches.
Yeah, to me, it feels very inspirational. It feels beyond the reach of ordinary people, which, Glenn achieved. I even don't know who the Minister of the Justice, how you speak with them. who would it's not good, like an individual person, you got their WeChat account and you talk. So yeah, it needs a proper skill of building the business, which I think that's your strength.
Yes, yeah, creating that collaborative approach, understanding that we have a property provider community and investor community that is backing us. That gives the confidence to organisations like MIAs, like the NHS, like the MOJ, to give us exclusive access to what they need, so that they don't have to worry filling it. They can't get the properties, they can't reach the community, they don't know how to do it, and they don't necessarily have the resources, but we do. So, and we have the support element as well, which was there was a 24-hour contact center provided during the pandemic for landlords who had issues, or ex-offenders who had property maintenance problems, or for probation officers who wanted to get in touch with us about the individuals that they were housing. Yeah. It's making sure that the service fits the requirement.
Yes.
And bringing the partners together. There's invariably, when you're a property owner, there's invariably a missing piece. You can't get the finance.
Yeah.
You can't get the insurance. You can't find out who to rent your property to. You can't get the support that's needed for the individual that's housed, and we help you find that missing piece.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's exactly all the landlord needs. We talk about the renting a property is like passive income, but before you actually receive that income, there's a lot of work you need to do to build up the system, build up all of those, as you mentioned, and then you can enjoy. So yeah, it's that's why we will gather together and to learn how to do the business. Okay. Thanks, Glenn. Do we now we can go into the next sections?
Excellent. Yeah, I'm all done. I'm complete. It's been great to share with you what we've been up to over the last 18 months, and I hope you guys see the opportunity for yourselves in. You're already here talking to Nan Lee, so I'm sure that it's a topic that's in your conversation.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Hope I can meet you in the UK when I come over. When the restriction is from my end, it's easier. Then I can I can come to the UK.
It's only a Eurostar away, isn't it?
OK， 好吧，那我就进入下面一个环节。好的，OK， 我就好的，大家可以看到我的屏幕吗？可以是吧 ？OK，
看得到，看得到。
好的，好，那个因为时间的关系啊，我就简单的跟大家来讲一讲。